There's a minivan parked at the edge of a Target parking lot, back seats folded flat, a blanket taped over the rear window. Inside, a mother is helping her son with a worksheet by phone flashlight because the streetlight above them just went dark. He has school in 8 hours, she has work in 6. Nobody's coming to rescue them tonight. This is just Tuesday, and here's the part that should stop you cold. This isn't one family. It isn't a handful of unlucky cases scattered across a few cities. We're talking about millions of people now living out of vehicles in this country, and the number is growing faster than almost anyone is willing to admit out loud. By the time we're done here, you'll understand why the official numbers are wrong, why this is happening to people who did everything right, and why your car, the one sitting in your driveway right now, is closer to being someone's only home than you probably want to believe. If your income stopped tomorrow, how many weeks before you're the one folding down the back seat? Let's start with the myth, because it has to die first. The story America tells itself is that homelessness happens to people who made bad decisions, addiction, mental illness, a refusal to work. That story is comfortable because it keeps the problem far away from you. It says, that could never be me, because I don't do those things. Here's the problem. It's not true, and the data makes that obvious. A huge share of the people living in cars right now have jobs. They wake up to alarms. They clock in. They pay taxes. Researchers have a name for this group now, the working homeless. And every time someone hears it for the first time, there's a pause, because it sounds like a contradiction. It isn't. It's arithmetic. When full-time work doesn't pay enough to cover the cost of a lease, the outcome isn't a mystery. It's math doing exactly what math does. So how many people are we actually talking about? This is where it gets uncomfortable because nobody actually knows the real number. And that's not an accident. The federal government measures homelessness through something called a point-in-time count. One night a year, volunteers fan out and try to count everyone without stable housing. For someone sleeping on a sidewalk, that method works reasonably well. For someone sleeping in a car, it barely works at all. Vehicle dwellers move. They rotate parking spots every few nights specifically so nobody notices them. Because being noticed usually means a knock on the window, a ticket, or a tow. They park behind big box stores after closing in industrial zones, on residential streets where nobody's looking too closely. During the day, they disappear into ordinary life. Work, the library, a gym membership they only really use for the shower. That invisibility isn't carelessness, it's survival. But it also means the official count is almost certainly missing hundreds of thousands of people, maybe more. Housing researchers across major cities, Los Angeles, San Diego, Seattle, and now Phoenix, Denver, Las Vegas, Austin, consistently say the real number is substantially higher than what gets reported. We are undercounting a crisis that's already enormous, and undercounting it specifically because the people living through it have learned that being seen is dangerous. Now let's talk about why this is happening, because it didn't happen by accident. In major cities right now, apartment vacancy rates have fallen as low as 2.8%. Picture a parking garage with 100 spaces. 97 of them are full. That's the American rental market. When supply gets that tight, prices only move one direction. Rent has climbed roughly 30% nationally over the past several years, and in plenty of cities, far more than that. A plain one-bedroom apartment, nothing special, just 4 walls and a door that locks, now runs $1,800 to $2,400 a month in a lot of metro areas. To afford that without spending more than a third of your income on housing, which is the standard economists use as the safety threshold, you need to be earning north of $25 an hour. Full-time, no gaps. A huge portion of the American workforce doesn't clear that bar. Not because they're lazy, because retail, food service, logistics, and care work, the jobs that keep the country actually running, pay what they've always paid while rent kept climbing without them. Roughly 40% of renters in this country are already spending more than 30% of their income on rent. A large share of those are above 50%. Sit with that for a second. If half your paycheck disappears before you've bought a single grocery, there is no cushion left. None. And something always goes wrong eventually. A car repair, a shift cut, a diagnosis. Here's the part that surprises people most: how fast it happens. There's an assumption that losing your home is a slow slide. Years of warning signs, plenty of time to course correct. For most families ending up in a vehicle, that's not what happened at all. Picture a 2-income household already spending half its earnings on rent. One partner loses their job. Unemployment, where it even applies, rarely covers a full rent payment in a high-cost city. Savings, if there are any, stretch a month, maybe 2. Then the math simply stops working. Landlords don't wait. Eviction moves fast. In a matter of weeks, not years, that family has no address. Medical debt does the same thing on a different timeline. A single hospital stay can generate tens of thousands of dollars in bills within days. For a family without strong insurance, the choice narrows to something brutal: pay the hospital or pay the rent. Divorce does it too. One household splitting into two, both needing separate leases in a market where a single one-bedroom already costs $1,500 to $2,000 a month. And once that housing is gone, getting it back is far harder than getting it in the first place. Most landlords want a security deposit, a reference, and a credit history that survived the crash intact. Losing your housing tends to take all three of those things down with it. So the vehicle that was supposed to be temporary stops being temporary. Days become weeks. Weeks become months. The longer you're in it, the harder it becomes to get out of it. Economists actually have a term for this: the cost of being poor. Financial instability doesn't just reflect a lack of money. It actively manufactures new costs that make recovery harder. Parking tickets, impound fees, repair bills on the vehicle that's also your bedroom. And speaking of that vehicle, it is not a free place to live. This is the assumption that trips people up the most. No landlord, no lease, so it has to be cheaper, right? Wrong. It's just a different set of bills, and by now, those bills have gotten brutal. Take heating. A propane canister that used to run about $18 now costs $28 to $35, and you're not buying one for the season. You're refilling every 2 or 3 days in cold weather. That's not a bill, that's a countdown. Take gas. Every overnight parking restriction turns your vehicle from a stationary shelter into a meter that never stops running. Every mile driven to avoid a ticket is money gone, and rising gas prices push people farther from the jobs, healthcare, and schools they actually need to reach. Take repairs. A car or van living 24/7 as a home doesn't stay reliable. Heating systems fail. $1,500 to $2,500 to fix. Batteries die. Electrical systems short out. There's no warranty on any of it. Just bills nobody has the money to cover. So you start seeing vehicles that just sit unmoving for days. Not because the people inside gave up, because they literally cannot afford whatever broke. Then there's the wall almost nobody sees coming until they hit it: insurance. In today's market, insurance isn't a courtesy. It's closer to a legal license to keep existing. And insurers have quietly rewritten who qualifies. An RV over a certain age? Denied. Living in what they classify as a high-risk area? Denied. Any accident history? Denied. Or your premium doubles. Full coverage on an older RV that cost around $450 a year not long ago can now run $1,200 to $1,800. Even basic liability has jumped from roughly $200 to $350 to $600. For someone already living paycheck to paycheck, that's not a budget line. That's a locked door. And here's the chain reaction once you can't keep up with it. No insurance means you can't stay in legal RV parks. No legal parking means you're forced onto public streets. Public streets mean tickets. Tickets mean impound. Impound means you've lost your home, not because you broke a law, but because you couldn't keep the paperwork current. Which brings us to enforcement, because this is where the system stops being neutral. If you're renting an apartment and you fall behind, your landlord has to go through the courts to remove you. There's a hearing, there's process, it takes time. If you're living in a vehicle, none of that applies. Legally, your vehicle isn't a home, it's property, and property gets impounded. No hearing required. Some cities charge over $50 just for the initial ticket. Add towing, add administrative fees, add impound storage, running $100 to $150 a day. And the total to get your vehicle, your home, back can exceed a month's rent. Every day it sits, there is a day you're not getting closer to stability. You're getting closer to losing everything permanently. Cities frame this as public safety. Sometimes the complaints behind it are real. But towing someone's home doesn't end their homelessness. It relocates it. This block today, 2 streets over tomorrow, across town next week. You're not solving anything. You're just making poverty less visible to the people who complained about seeing it. Now here's who's actually being pushed into this the fastest. And it's probably not who you're picturing. It's not primarily young people who lost a job last month. It's people who worked their entire lives and reached the age they were promised they'd finally get to rest. The average Social Security check runs about $1,540 a month. The average one-bedroom rents for $1,900 to $2,200. You don't need an economics degree to see that those two numbers don't meet. You can't cut your medication. You can't stop eating. Eventually, something else gets cut. And for hundreds of thousands of elderly Americans, that something has been housing. The number of seniors living in cars, vans, and RVs has climbed sharply over the past decade. People who paid into the system for 40 years and are now retiring into a parking lot instead of a porch. And then there are the kids, because this is where the crisis stops being an economic story and becomes something else entirely. Federal guidelines classify students living in cars, motels, or shelters as homeless, and school districts are legally required to track them. Well over 1 million students nationwide experience some form of homelessness each year, and a meaningful share of that number is living in a vehicle with their family right now. A kid who slept in a back seat last night still has to walk into school this morning, still has to focus on a math test, still has to make sure nobody finds out, because the moment other kids notice, the wrinkled clothes, the missed shower, the same jacket every single day, the bullying starts and the withdrawal begins. Research on childhood housing instability is blunt about the damage. Lower academic performance, disrupted emotional development, mental health effects that don't just disappear once housing is eventually found. These kids are learning something no classroom should ever have to teach them, that being poor is something to be ashamed of, something to hide. Here's what's important to say clearly before we close, because it's easy to walk away from a video like this feeling like nothing can change. None of this was inevitable. The housing shortage driving all of it is the direct result of specific decisions. Decades of zoning restrictions that blocked new housing in the places demand was highest. Chronic underinvestment in public housing. Affordable units steadily converted into higher priced ones. Those were choices. Choices in the other direction can change the outcome. The gap between wages and rent isn't a permanent law of the economy either. When wage policy and labor markets shift, that gap narrows. Even the way medical debt destroys families is the design choice built into how American insurance works, and design choices can be redesigned. This crisis has identifiable causes. That means it has identifiable solutions. It is not random, and it is not permanent. It will keep growing exactly as long as we keep treating it like weather instead of policy. So think about the minivan in that parking lot again. The mother with the flashlight. The kid with the worksheet due in 8 hours. They didn't fail the system. The system was never built to hold them in the first place. Has this been happening where you live? Have you noticed the same car parked in the same spot for days at a time and wondered? Tell us in the comments. This is exactly the kind of conversation that needs more light on it, not less. If this gave you a clearer picture of what's actually happening, subscribe and turn on notifications. We'll keep digging into the economic stories most coverage only skims the surface of. And if you want to understand exactly why the American middle class has quietly stopped being able to afford a place to live, watch the video on the left. And if you want the full picture of how layoffs, debt, and homelessness are colliding to break entire cities in 2026, watch the video on the right. Don't forget to subscribe.